Hello and welcome to Wolves Fancast Matchday preview for the Aston Villa game away at Villa Park. Going into this game, Wolves are under a little bit of pressure. A lot of pressure starting to build on Gary O'Neill from certain parts of the fan base. Certain voices are coming through, and it's an unenviable test for the club and for the team going against a Villa team who have in recent years had a resurgence and who are in a recent good vein of form. But we go into it on the hope that we can turn the season around, we can start to get some results and look forward to building on what Gary O'Neill's been doing in recent weeks. Going into the game, there is a certain number of injuries that have been talked about. Gary O'Neill in his press conference has spoken about Ryan Aït-Nouri and Totti still being doubts for the game, which puts a giant strain on the defensive side of the team, raising questions of whether Gary O'Neill is going to revert to the, say, Wolves type and go for a back five, or continue with his plans and ideologies that he wants to put on the side and play somebody like a Matt Doherty at left back. There's a massive pressure from the fans to get a result, and I think following on from the performance against Brighton and much of the same in the week in the Cup, that there is a certain understanding that if there is a poor result here, there's going to be an ever increased pressure on Gary O'Neill. And the voices from the fan base who are very frustrated with the start of the season are going to be growing and growing. But with that, I think there is a renewed hope in the way that we're playing football. I mean, the players who've come in, Sam Johnston has done okay. We've seen a massive improvement in that out ball, the kicking that he has, being able to find Jurgen Strand-Larsen from kicks from his feet, from goal kicks, from free kicks has been important. But it's now building on that and looking to improve week on week, which we are seeing with what O'Neill's doing. I think there is a definite improvement going into it. From where we started against Arsenal, there was the blip against Chelsea, and I think the Chelsea game, when we come to the end of the season, will be seen as just that. I think the Chelsea game will be seen as an anomaly on the stats because it just was one of these games that was completely crazy. But it isn't an unenviable task. Villa have started the season exceptionally well. They've had very good results in the Champions League against Young Boys of Bern. They had fantastic results in the league. The only blip they've had really this season is a 2-0 loss to Arsenal, which is similar to us in game week 1. Well, as was game week 1. But they are carrying on from last season with a fantastic manager in it, Unai Emery, and they have improved on their squad as well. So it is going to be an unenviable task to go to Villa Park and get a result. But we have in recent years, fantastically, with the deflected Ruben Neves free kick in the comeback recently. But we as a fan base will be together. We're going to be cheering on the boys. Hopeful, really, really hopeful that there is going to be a good result here, and it'll be the sort of result that kicks around our season, because we sort of need that at this point. And I think if there was ever going to be a game, it would have to be this one. It would be one where, in a way, there is no pressure because it is a derby, and sort of with derbies, the form book sort of goes out the window, to use a cliche. But there is a massive amount of pressure. What we don't want is that we don't want to go there. We don't want to lose by 3, 4, 5 goals, because this would cause an immense amount of pain, not just for the players but also for the fan base, that they have got to go to work, talk to colleagues, friends, family who are Villa fans. It's going to be a lot of pain for these guys. But we remain hopeful as Wolves fans, and I think what Gary O'Neill is doing in the squad that he's building, and we've seen this from just the last couple of games where players like Andre have come in, he's made a massive difference to that style of play, without being integrated massively. I mean, he's come into the team, had barely any time really training with the side. You know, he came in the day before playing against Nottingham Forest. We played sort of the last 10-15 minutes there, and then you've got the game against last weekend where he played for 70 minutes against Newcastle, and he looked exceptional. He breaking the record with the 40 out of 40 passes, long passes, or whatever the stat that he was famous for in his first game. Absolutely incredible. And he looks like somebody who's going to make a massive difference to the way that we actually start attacks. Comparatively him to Tommy Doyle. Tommy Doyle is somebody who's a little bit slower in that first couple of seconds, whereas Andre picks the ball up a lot with quicker, has his head up a lot quicker, and passes the ball off with a little bit more intensity and a little bit more speed. It means that we can create these turnovers a lot faster, and we're getting on the pitch a hell of a lot quicker, which is important for a side who are like a hybrid between a counter-attacking side and somebody who's got a lot of pace as well. And we can stretch the game with the likes of Jürgen Strand-Larsen. With a ball going forward over to the top, he wins a lot of flick-ons we saw against Newcastle. And it's something that we've got to build and capitalise on. And I think as we become more used to playing with each other, I think as we get 10-15 games into the season, I think these sort of partnerships will build and manufacture themselves in a certain way to be able to get more goal scoring opportunities and to take more control over the game. I think with these partnerships, we need to see an increase in possession to go alongside it, to see the benefits of sort of being able to hold the ball up front and being able to maintain that stamina through a game. Because looking at the Newcastle game, there was a certain energy drop at around about the 60th, 70th minute because we didn't capitalise on everything that we did well when Johnston was finding Jürgen Strand-Larsen. A lot of the flick-ons were just landing to a Newcastle player. Jon-Rik Bellegarde and Cunha weren't really gambling on them enough as they should have done, and as a result the ball was coming back a lot sooner than it really should have done. Looking at sort of the Villa game, I mean, they've been very much of the same in a lot of their games. What's worrying with them is you've got players like Duran, Rodgers, who have come in and they're young guys and they've shown a lot of ability and scoring fantastic goals. Duran's goal last weekend against Everton was something out of, I don't know, a piece of art really. But it's one where they're playing a settled side and they've got a good balance of experienced and young players. You know, the likes of Lucas Digne, Pau Torres, who is he won European competitions with Villarreal. You've got Tillemans, you know, he's been part of fantastic Leicester side, and then you've got Ollie Watkins, played within the England squad. But then the other end of the scale, you've got, you know, Morgan Rodgers, the young lad. He's fantastic. He looks like he knows how to play football the right way. He wants to be progressive. He wants to attack sides. He wants to play with no fear. And I think looking at them, they've built a very, very good side. And that's no surprise. Unai Emery is a fantastic manager. He has fantastic levels of experience. And it's frustrating because this is where we as Wolves fans thought that the club was going to go in recent years. And I think due to whatever series of events that have happened, I think to go over old ground would be silly at this point. But the series of events that have happened that had led us to where we are now, it frustrates us that we aren't in the same position, or we aren't in a similar position where we are able to push ourselves up the table and be more competitive in games against the traditional top six, or, you know, we aren't winning games at a canter and competing in Europe and enjoying it and having these passport days out, as you know, getting the passport ready sort of thing. And it's painful that where we were, we knew now with the back-to-back seventh, and where we are now and where Villa are is tantamount to what has gone wrong with the club across all levels, from transfers to where the management structure was working, and it's something that hopefully we'll fix now. Matt Hobbs is involved. We're bringing in these fantastic players from South America. I mean, Joao Gomez, he might not have started this season too well, but we all know his talent. And Andre, since he's come in, has looked like a fantastic player. Going into the weekend, I think it's going to be a tough challenge. I mean, I'm still hopeful. I think there is a chance that we may get a result. I don't. That's probably my heart over my head, but I'm hoping we can kind of manage to get a result 2-1 or a 1-0, something really, really tight. But it's going to take a monumental effort from the guys, because this season we just haven't looked as solid at the back, even though we have in recent weeks improved. We've just got to make sure that we are aware in all parts of the game, and we aren't conceding a lot of shots from distance as we have been doing. But within the box, since the Chelsea game, we haven't looked as fragile. So within our own 18-yard box, I think we haven't. But with that, I think we have right to be hopeful. I don't think it's time to throw the towel in yet on the management system. I think there's still a hell of a lot of time to improve, and there's a hell of a lot of time for Gary O'Neill to put a lot of work into it and focus on what he's good about Wolves side at the moment. And I think we'll come out of it the other side looking a lot better and stronger. So we're hopeful for Saturday 3:00, Villa Park. Let's enjoy it. Let's hopefully the boys put on a show and we get some result and we've got something to really be proud about. But yeah, enjoy it, Wolves fans. Catch you for the preview show. Hopefully Sunday night live on YouTube. If not, on all your usual podcast places, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We'll catch you there.
Evening, everyone. This is just a quick Villa preview for the game on Saturday. Obviously, midweek we lost to Brighton in the Cup, unfortunately. But we'll go into that a little bit in a minute. But I think the first question that all the lads have been answering is, Gary O'Neill, has he got a bit of a selection headache for the midfield three? Would you play Andre, Gomez and Lamina together? And for me, just touching on the Brighton game a little bit, I think Tommy Doyle, I think you do have to try and squeeze him in now, I think, at this point. And I'd say probably for Joao Gomez. Joao Gomez is a great player. We all know he's a great player at the end of the day. But I think Tommy Doyle gives you a little bit something more different on the ball. I think he's the most progressive player with the ball, isn't he? He can see the passes that the other three can't, to be fair. And he's probably the best on the ball out of the three. So I think you do have to try and shoehorn him in now, because otherwise, Andre and Gomez and Lamina, they're all hard-hitting tacklers, aren't they? Not hard-hitting, but they're all ball winners, and sometimes you just want someone, especially when you've got three of them, you want someone that's a little bit different. So for me, I'd probably drop Joao Gomez and try and accommodate Tommy Doyle and have him with Andre and Lamina. So for me on Saturday, that's how I would be going. I think the midfield three against Villa, I think you need to try and win that midfield battle, because they've got runners, haven't they, with Onana in the middle. So I think a midfield three is going to be the one that we're going to need to do. And I think Villa are there to be got at, to be fair, as good as they have been and as good as they are. I do think that they are there to be got at. And I think Tommy Doyle is the person that can help break them down. And then in regards to left backs, obviously, it seems like there's a bit of a fitness issue, with Totti and Ait-Nouri. So the question is, for the Villa game, would I play Totti or Ait-Nouri? For me, I'd always play Ait-Nouri. I think even though he's a little bit suspect defensively, even though on his day he can be very good defensively 1v1, I think he just gives you so much going forward. And against Villa, you need as much attacking threat as you can on the pitch. I think if you start dropping Totti, then you're relying a lot on your forward players, really. And we know we've seen that before when relying on your forward players to work a bit of magic for you. Sometimes it's not always the case, and it's hard to do. So for me, I would be playing Ait-Nouri. And then I think the final question was on Gary O'Neill. Is there any pressure on him? For me, everyone's looking at the last season's results, the back end of last season. But I think for me that's hard to it's hard to judge just because he didn't have a full squad. We were playing with Fraser and Chihuahua up front at the end of the day. You know what I mean? He didn't even have a fit striker, and that was out of his control. If it was up to him, he would have bought a senior striker. Obviously, the club didn't give him the chance to get one in the January when we probably needed one. And Neto pulled up against Newcastle second half of the season. Cunha missed the Coventry games, and that was in March. You know what I mean? So we had Juan came up from Asia Cup and didn't really hit the ground running. And they were your three key players for us going forward. So I think you lost a lot of goals there, really. So I'll let him off the hook for that. But and I think this season we've seen enough going. Even though we've leaked a few goals in at the minute, I still think we look a threat. I think we still can score goals. Cunha, but it was Cunha, Strand Larson. Bellegarde's already off the ground with his goal against Forest. So I think we can play. Going forward, I don't think it's an issue. And Mosquera and Dawson, we've only had them for 2 games. Really, I think the first game we really saw them was the Newcastle game, and I think they were class. Ultimately we lost to Newcastle to 2 screamers. So it wasn't anything to do with the shape or the system, and we created enough chances in that game to win the game. So for me, he's not under pressure yet, but I think we need a win. So I think, to be honest, as a score prediction, I'll probably go to that now. I do fancy us tomorrow. I do fancy us. I think going away from home with the midfielder that we've got, I think we can try and win that midfield battle. And I do fancy us to pick up a result there, to be fair, whether that's a win or a draw. And I think that will be the win that will, set them off, really, that gets them going. But we'll see. But as a score prediction, I'm going to say 2-1 Wolves.
Good afternoon, good evening, or even good morning, depending on when you're watching this, Wolves fans. Welcome to the latest video from Wolves Fancast. This one is a match preview of Wolves against Villa away at Villa Park at 3 p.m. on Saturday. 3 p.m. on a Saturday, that's quite a rare thing these days for Wolves, isn't it? Feels that way. Be a tough game for Wolves on Saturday. Villa are in a good space. I spoke to a few Villa fans. They're not completely enamoured with the performances, the way they've started the season, but the results speak for themselves, don't they? So obviously they had that really good comeback win against Everton last week, and then they've obviously followed that up and cemented it with a nice away performance in the Champions League. So they'll be in a good spot. They're full of form, full of confidence. So it'll be a tough game for Wolves. As for kind of key players to Villa, I think whoever plays in that number 9 spot, whether it is Ollie Watkins, who I did notice may have picked up a knock because I saw a picture of him on the bench going viral around socials of had an ice pack on either his ankle, his calf or Achilles maybe, so he's probably carrying something. But even if he doesn't play, then you've got John Duran to come in, who is different prospect of a number 9, but equally as dangerous. Seems to be affecting games whenever he's on the field at the moment. So whoever plays as the number 9 for Villa will be a key man for them. Another one I think will be Morgan Rogers, playing that just off the striker. He's spoken this week about his kind of affiliations to our certain neighbours and coming through their academy and things. So that'll make him maybe have a little bit of extra zing about his game. Bit more of a point to prove, not only for Villa but also kind of due to those previous allegiances. But I think kind of linking Morgan Rogers to one of the Wolves' most important players, I think will be Andre, which I think he will be in predominantly all of the games that he plays now for Wolves, because he's one of the most was one of the most sought after number 6s in world football as a prospect. So still a real coup for Wolves to have got that one over the line and to have him integrating. But I do think we need to use him that little bit more. There was a few times against Newcastle where the centre-backs or the goalkeeper are a bit apprehensive to give it to him, and he was demanding it. So I think as the communication gets better, I think we'll see him get even better than what he's already showing, like kind of glimpses of at the moment. I think it'll be key for him to be the conduit between kind of defence, midfield, to launch those attacks. That is his game, is to pick the ball up off the goalkeeper centre halves and then spray it around, distribute it, as well as the normal number 6 of just like breaking up play and stuff like that. So get in and around Rodgers, stop the passing lanes into John Duran, but then also, like I said, be the conduit for our defence to get it into attack and launch that progression forward. I think the other one will be Jurgen Strand-Larsen, just not only because he's a striker, but also because I think Pau Torres is quite important for them in the build-up and sees a lot of the ball. So I think if Jurgen Strand-Larsen can get in and about him, make him think about his defensive duties a little bit more than trying to get involved in that kind of possession-based football that Villa play, I think that would be a key battle. And I think for Wolves, I think I'll be happy with the draw. So I'm going to predict a 1-1. I don't know if he starts or not, depending on what Gary does, but I think Gomez will be the Wolves' goal scorer. But enjoy your time in Birmingham more so than Aston, Wolves fans. Enjoy your weekends. Hopefully Wolves put in a better performance that I'm probably about to drop at 7-aside. So have a great weekend, Wolves fans. See you all soon.
All right, let's be real. We need to start getting points on the board. Performances might need to start taking a bit of second precedent to performances. I really like Gary Neville. I like what he's done since he's come to the club. We're in a bad run of results, but I don't feel like the performances recently have justified the points tally we've got in the Premier League so far. For even in the game away to Brighton in the week, we deserved more than a 3-2 loss. We may have ended up losing on penalties if we did make it level on the 90 minutes. But I feel we've got some good players that are just not really getting the rub of the green at the moment. You can't really account for Newcastle scoring the goals that they did last week. We're not going to have Craig Dawson ping one top corner like Fabian Schär did. I'd like to see Matheus Cunha score similar goals to what Harvey Barnes did last week, but the way that Gary O'Neill sets us up to play football, we're not the sort of club that's going to want to attempt shots from that sort of distance that Barnes did last week. I feel like at Arsenal away, we were competitive. Second half against Chelsea, imploded, but the first half could have been 3-all, 4-all. That day it was literally a game with little to no structure, and second half Chelsea were just way more clinical than what we were. Forest away, we got the point. If you look at the sort of the group of teams that we're likely to be fighting it out against this season, Arsenal, Chelsea and Newcastle are unfortunately teams that are likely to finish above us. It's not nice to say that out loud because you want to be competing as high as you can in the league, but you have to look at the expenditure of what those clubs have paid out, the salaries of what their players are on compared to Wolves. And if you look at sort of the salary, I think we're sort of in the bottom 5, bottom 6 for how much this club outlay. But I still think there's a lot of poor teams in the Premier League, and you look at sort of the calibre of forward players that Wolves have still got. Matheus Cunha, Jurgen Strand-Larsen, Hee-Chan Wang, from Rodrigo Gomez is a talented player. Gonzalo Guedes seems to be coming to a bit of run of form at the moment. Gary O'Neill said earlier he's not likely to be fit enough to start, but he's definitely pushing for a place on the back of his recent couple of cup performances and his little bits of cameos off the bench in the league. Still really like Jean-Rick Bellegarde. One of the biggest dilemmas for me is how Gary O'Neill accommodates Mario Lemina, João Gomes and Andre into the starting 11, because for me it's going to get to a point very soon, I think, where Gary O'Neill is going to have to sacrifice one of those three. I think Mario Lemina did a great job in that more advanced role in the first hour against Newcastle last Sunday, but overall I think if he wants to have a bit more resilience in front of the defence, it'd be João Gomes and Andre, and then you've got to try and fit in a more advanced attacking midfielder instead of Lemina. But with Lemina being captain, I don't know how Gary O'Neill carries out that sort of cutting of one of the three out the starting line, because João Gomes is good as talented as Andre, but I think Andre is what the sort of the foil that we needed in front of our defence if we are to stick with a back four. Villa away has never been an easy game. We always make it difficult for them. From my sort of recollection, it's been a good few years since they've comfortably beat us. Even last season, I think they won. Was it 2-0? 2-0 on the day. I can't remember. Ryan Ait-Nouri had a big chance in the first half. You've got to take into account we had Leon Chouamé up front for the first hour, Nathan Fraser for the last half an hour. It's hard to compete against a team that ended up in the Champions League when you've got academy graduates leading the line. But I feel like, as I've already mentioned, we've gave a good account for ourselves in the opening 4 game weeks of the Premier League, bar that second half against Chelsea. So hopefully we can pick up a result tomorrow away at Aston Villa.
And my score prediction for Aston Villa Wolves tomorrow at Villa Park is Aston Villa 0, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. Stop barking.